Good afternoon. We are going to take a couple more minutes, give everyone a chance to be here by 11:30. I do have the sweater that we are working on in the Knit+A+Long up on the dress dummy. It is turned inside out. This starts the side seam here at the armhole, and we are going to be inserting a side seam pocket. This being the front of the cardigan here, because it's the half piece. The back is to this side. Again, I'm going to give everyone a few minutes before we get started. I am a couple minutes early. We used a size 10 knitting needle to make the gauge that I wanted for this sweater. And the sweater was made totally for measurements. Did the Knit+A+Long for the new knitters to practice knit stitches and purl stitches. Did a tiny little bit of ribbing down on the border. But we're now to the finishing where I've already showed how to put a pocket on the front and how to welcome in Volta. Thank you for the gifts and the heart me. And other team member, thank you ever so much. But yes, we are working on this sweater here. I have already created a pocket panel here. What I basically did was laid my hand out like this, just very gently. I didn't stretch it, just gently. It's about as wide as you want a pocket to be, you know, enough for your hands to stretch out a little bit in the pocket. Took that measurement on a tape measure and then used my knitting gauge to figure I needed 24 stitches across from side to side to make it that wide. And then all I did was make it as long as my hand, from a little bit, you know, a little bit before my wrist and a little bit past the length of my fingertips here. And we are now going to use this as our pocket insert. Being very careful. Hey Ezra, being very careful to make sure that we don't sew our pocket shut. I have sewn the pocket shut before. Oh, thank you, Ezra, for the subscription. But yeah, we're going to sew the pocket insert to the back pocket, as you can tell here. And we are not going to sew it to the front because you need the front open to access the pocket. It's a little confusing from inside out, and even now for me I have to hold it up there and say, okay, this way, that way, the other way. So I'm going to show you how we're going to pin this. I did do this in stockinette stitch, so we'll have that nice knit look on the inside of the pocket. So we are going to face that to the wrong side, making sure that these two seams match together from the back and the side pocket, because the pocket will be stitched to the front of your sweater, making the front of the sweater the front of the pocket. So we are going to place this on here like this, and I'm going to finish giving this a little pin. We will not pin this open all the way down because we do need some of the pocket to be closed up. Otherwise, your pocket is liable to drop everything out of the pocket. And here I'm going trying to pin it to the front when it needs to be pinned to the back. And again, when I sew this seam, because the pocket is going in the seam, only the pocket and the back get stitched together where they overlap. The front piece totally gets ignored and doesn't get stitched down. And yes, I have stitched pockets closed before doing just this. So as I'm pinning this on here, I am realizing that we need to change this now. Hopefully, I'll make sure that I have non-copyrighted sounds on. Give me just a moment here, so we can have a little bit of background noise. While we wait for the others to come in, and I will finish pinning this pocket, and I will then turn my camera around so that I can show you how to sew this on, again avoiding the front portion so that it stays open. And we are going to sew this seam. This portion here, the pocket, will replace the front part of the cardigan in the seam. And it'll make better sense once I take it down and you can see, especially when I turn it right side out. And I'm only going to come down far enough that my hand will fit in there comfortably. So from this green tab here where I started stitching, I've got about a 1/2 inch here, and I want a 1/2 inch below the width of my palm here to make it comfortable to get this in here. So we are going to come right on down here one more. And then once we get past the pocket opening, we go back to stitching all 3 pieces together, which would be the back, the pocket lining, and then the rest of the front. It all gets stuck in together just like this, with the pocket laying over top the back and the front pieces. So I will pin those down here with these, at least this one right here. Once I get it down to this point, I'll know that all 3 pieces go together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this right side out really quickly so that you can see how this pocket comes into play. And I will have to turn this around, not knocking everything off the desk while I do it. Alright, get this to the right side. And I will leave the sleeve to the inside there. And get this turned around here so you can see our pocket, this being the front. Once we sew this seam here, here lays our pocket. Let me see if I can get a little more light on this for a second here. Yeah, there we go. Turn it around. This will be seamed straight shut down to here, and then you can see the pocket picks up there, and it will be stitched onto the front side of the cardigan here. So then we have our pocket opening in the seam. Now the next thing I'm going to do, of course you seam that up. I will do a video on that because that takes a little bit of time. I wanted to try and get the pickup stitches for the collar band. And let me turn this camera around here. Give me just a minute. Did we flip it? No, we didn't flip it. We did. Now we're down on the desk. And you can still see I've still got this piece of work up here as well. My desk is always covered with a lot of stuff. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the collar band. And get this all turned around right side here, because that work is normally all done from the right side. And I still haven't done the whole side seam on both pieces, but you can see the neck behind the back here. Did I turn that wrong side out? Yep. Get this right side out so at least it'll lay flat. That's my sleeve there. So it won't twist in and be so awkward. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up stitches all the way from the border at the bottom, the very, very bottom of our sweater, come all the way up around this front band, up around the neck and down the other side. This is going to be our button band, hey Shauna, where we're going to put our buttons. Is that Alice? Yes, that's Alice. How are you, Alice? I'm doing well today. So yeah, I really like this yarn, but I do not like this yarn for sewing, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. I'm going to give you all a, as I was sewing, you know, as you sew, your yarn sometimes unravels as you're going along. I mentioned this morning as I was sewing a side seam over here. This is more like a single ply, because when I unroll it, it looks like a single ply. Now, as I was sewing with this, of course, twisting that sewing needle around, things come unraveled, and the yarn started doing this. I would not recommend using this brand of yarn for anything that you have to sew seams on, or don't use this to sew the seams with. I'm feeling pretty good today, Alice. Thank you. But yeah, I wouldn't use this to sew. It was coming apart as I was sewing stuff together, and you know, it was really, really irritating. It would probably be very lovely on a blanket where you don't have to sew pieces together, or actually just use it to make something and use a different yarn to sew it together. I was concerned about using like a worsted weight in either this purple or a dark gray or something to sew the sweater together with, but then I was like, oh, that's really going to stand out a whole lot. So I just kept replying, which I just kept twisting it back together so it stayed strong as I sewed it together. So I'm hoping that it doesn't come apart in the washing machine. This is a very lovely yarn. It is lovely to work with, but as far as using it for sewing something together, I would say no. So, you know, anything that you're working that's not going to need to be stitched together with that yarn would be a wonderful make. Now, I had pulled out, and what did I do with them? No, that's not them. I had knitting needles out here on the desk for this, and I have inadvertently moved them somewhere. Here they are. I'm using a set of 60-inch fixed circulars. We have a lot of area to go across and pick up stitches, so I'm definitely going to need the longest length of cable that I have, and that is a 60-inch cable. So we have that out here, and we're going to get that all unrolled and ready to go, and get our yarn ready, and I'm going to show you how we're going to start picking up our stitches. I like to start on the left side because I like the right side facing, and this is the side where we picked up the pocket right off the front of the material and stitched it right on. Sewed it down on that one side. I still have to sew this side down. I think I might do another video or two just for tutorials about that. I may put another pocket on the other front side and still keep the side seam pocket. But I did want to show you that side seam pocket. I am going to do a tutorial on that, so that's why I did not seam that up. These colors, they're absolutely wonderful colors together. Yes, I do like it very, very much. This is what it looks like. Some of it is kind of tweed-ish, where they've taken two different colors of yarn and twisted it together. You can't really see it looking at it this way, but the colorway is called Autograph, and it is the Red Heart brand. Roll with it. It feels after wash soft, so I'm wondering how soft it's going to get in the wash, or how much softer it is going to get. So I'm really, really, looking forward to getting this done. Thank you for the heart, me Lisa, and welcome in. So I'm going to show you how we're going to pick up stitches along this very edge vertical knit row here. And when we pick those up, it's going to give you a nice sharp view of this second vertical row here. It's going to give you a nice flat edge like this all the way up. What I actually do, I come right down here in the corner and I go through both legs from the front to the back. I'm getting ready to go the wrong way because we need our loop to come through from the back to the front. We don't want it to be showing. And I do the same thing as I always do. Loop my yarn back over my finger about this much, make my little loop. This is my first stitch that goes on to here. Put it on my needle. I'm going to hold a good bit of tension because I'm going to have to pull this back through that stitch right there. And I'm just going to do that to every vertical knit stitch all the way up to where the back and the front join. And I'm going to make sure, let me see if I can't bring the camera down a little bit closer so you can see exactly where I'm going. I am not going up this vertical row here. I'm using this chunk over here. Again, going through the front to the back. And if you look through a little bit, you can see the holes where you need to go. That's where your stitches are. So if you can open those up a little bit and you've got light shining down on the back of your desk like I do, you can see exactly where you need to put those stitches. And again, catching both legs of that very first vertical row of knit stitches on the edge. And I am working with 2 strands. That is the tail of my yarn and the working yarn at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and let the other end hang there. We don't need that anymore. And we will continue on with just a single strand now. And I'm basically just pulling a loop through my material all the way up and around. Now as I come up off of this edge row here, let me turn this light around this way a little bit. There we go. It back. We are basically doing a knit. You're pulling it right on through and going right on up to the next stitch. And you can see here I'm catching both legs, that vertical knit row, going up the edge there. And just pulling a loop through and keeping that right there on my needles. And you can see right where you need to go, catching both legs. You can see both legs of that vertical row there. And as I get a little bit further up, I'll be able to show you how that is going to separate that second vertical row off. Ooh, that got bright for a minute, didn't it? Must be reflecting off of this, I think. That might help. As you keep going up, you'll see exactly where your needle needs to go in next to catch that vertical knit row right there on the edge. Now, when I was talking about a very nice separation between these 2 vertical knit rows, if you're really, really meticulous about how you pick this up, it will come out just perfect. But you can see here my collar band is coming right up alongside a vertical knit row. These are going to come off this way, and this is going to continue to go this way. And it gives a nice defined edge, making sure not to catch pieces of the leg of the second vertical row as you pick up your stitches. And I'm just going to do that all the way up and around. And we are going to have to work a couple of rows before we can get to the button band, or the button portion of the collar band. I know normally I just throw buttons on whatever side I want to throw them on, but I've been told that women's buttons go on the left, men's buttons go on the right. I don't know why there has to be such a big deal about what side the buttons go on, as long as you can close the sweater up. I never made a big deal out of it, but And you want to make sure you pick up your stitches evenly. Normally, you know, if you're catching every row like I'm doing here, you should be okay. If you feel like your work is getting a little too bulky, you can skip a couple of rows. Thank you for the heart, me. Oh, we got more team members. We are working on a knit along that we've been working on for some weeks now. I did get last week's uploaded today. I've been procrastinating. Yes, procrastinating. So we got that downloaded. I will get that uploaded to my YT. So those of you who might not have made it for this one that want to know how we did a sweater for measurements, I will have all of that uploaded. And I'm trying to decide while I'm continuing to pick up these stitches here, if anyone needs to see a more detailed version of this. Hey, Horde. Hey, April. How are you, honey? Bambi, welcome in. Make sure I didn't. Hey, Lordy. I missed a couple of people there. Okay. Yeah, if anyone needs to see a little more detailed instruction on what I'm actually doing, I can slow down, bring the work a little closer to the camera so you can actually see. And I can even, that one didn't want to come through. Can even stretch the fabric a little bit more. It's a little giving to show you exactly the holes that I'm seeing. I've already went through this one right here, and we're going to hit the next one right here. And it runs right up that row, right up along that second vertical row. And I'm going to do this all the way up one front side of the cardigan. That one didn't come through either. One front side all the way here. Around the neck and down the other side. And then I will work a 1 by 1 rib, which is a knit 1, purl 1 stitch. And repeat that from one end of the row to the other. That will give me a ribbed look, but it won't be as stretchy as like the sleeve cuffs. It won't cause any puckering or gathering of the fronts of my cardigan. That's why on the collar band, which is what I'm working on now, I normally do a 1 by 1 rib. So I can keep that rib going as a border edge, but it's not stretchy. And it won't cause it to gather up because it would be stretchy. Grammy Lamb, thank you for the follow. I'm here to be the crafter's assistant. Anyone who needs any help with knitting or crocheting, anyone who wants to learn, I'm here to teach the same way I was taught, absolutely free. You just have to bring your own materials. And I'm going to have a couple knit-alongs so we can, this is actually the first knit-along, and we finished up a crochet-along I think last week or the week prior. And I'm going to continue to do that because I enjoy that, and I think that there was a lot of people that enjoyed the knit-alongs and the crochet-alongs. Especially the beginners, being able to have somebody to work a project along with, especially if you're been used to working just one thing or, you know, only flat, and now you want to learn how to knit in the round or socks or anything like that. You can take the journey along with me and you won't feel like you're all by yourself, especially if it's a new style within, you know, the knit or crochet thing. Yep, it's all about tension. And I think that's the biggest part of this is tension. and stitch count. It's always the stitch count that messes us up. Alright, now I'm making sure that I catch pretty much every row. Some of them might be a little shorter than others for some reason, or if it feels like I have too many stitches in one area, I might skip a little row that looks a little narrower than some of the others. I try to make sure to keep it fairly even on this pickup. And I'm using the same size needles that I started with, which normally when you do a ribbing you'll go down a size or 2 needles just to give it a little extra stretchiness. And as far as stretchiness, let me see, where is that? I'm looking for the one sleeve that I sewed up. Here it is. I'm going to talk about ribbing and stretchiness. This is really stretchy from the cuff, you know, the actual cast off cuff, all the way up and around. We want to have this same ribbing effect, but we don't want it to be as stretchy as this because we don't want our front collar band to be, you know, drawn in at any point. But you can tell that this is a little drawn in, and we don't want that for the front. So that's why I use a knit one, purl one rib around the front for the button band. Collar band. I know there's so many different names for so many parts of sweaters. And I'm making sure to bring my stitches back past this beveled portion so that they are true to size, and so that I don't have an issue getting them back off this cable back onto the needles when I come back through. And I'm not holding a whole lot of tension right now, just enough to be able to keep it down onto the needle so that I can pull it through. Yes, I'm adding a collar in right now, currently. Ezra's over there playing with my emotes. I need to make a few more for my subscribers. I know I have a lot more that I can do, but I need to find some that fit in with what I do here. I do have a few things set up. I think they're checking to make sure that I do. I've asked for a couple of friends to kind of give me suggestions that would help me up my game here with TikTok. And I want to do a little bit better on my video editing, make it a little more, you know, level it up a little bit. I'm really good at posting photos and having them scroll as a slideshow and, you know, adding music in at the right time, but I would really like to be able to do more than that. Cat, I learned to knit when I was 11 years old. I am now 53, so 42 years for the knitting and 40 years that I have crocheted. Actually 44 years that I've crocheted. I learned to crochet first when I was 9. And all I wanted to do was make chains. Just chain, you know, just pull the first little bit that you have to do to start any crochet project. It's called a chain stitch. And I used to make long chains, and I hung them around in my bedroom, and it looked like a ticker tape parade. You know, all these different colors hanging around like streamers, like, you know, like I was decorating for a party. And I'll stop every so often here and check and make sure that I'm catching that nice and even, because I like that to look finished and polished, just like that. That nice division between, you know, my collar band and the sweater front. Okay. Can pretty much feel where the next stitch is, the next row where I need to pull a stitch through. It's almost like little bumps. If you hold your hands just right and run up the fabric like this, you can feel it. Doot, doot, doot. Little bumps. And it makes it a little quicker to pick up your collar band, especially if sometimes you have issues with vision. You can feel your work. I do really good with that with the knit. Crochet, I prefer to do knit. I can crochet. I know all the basic stitches and I can follow a crochet pattern. But as far as what all I can do with knit, I'm a little more advanced with my knitting than I am with crochet. But I do teach both. Thank you for the hand hearts, Kat. You too, Valerie. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. And what's left of it. Actually, we're still in the morning hours, aren't we? Yeah, it's not even afternoon yet. I get up so early, I feel like I've went through all of my day already. So, thank you for the rose, Cat. Still trying to pull that through without holding it tight. I take those two out. I don't think I got a whole stitch through that last one. It's looking kind of thin there. There we go. I'm just going to work my way around. And this will take a little bit, so if anyone has any questions or anything, I just want to let everyone know too. I know that I'll probably come back and finish this up tomorrow. That way we don't have to wait all week for that. And I definitely will do a demonstration on a button band again. I'll have to do some videos here. Thinking about maybe doing a series that'll show how to do a side pocket in a seam, how to pick up a pocket on the front of a sweater and work it like that, how to add little things like that that, you know, not a lot of people think about when they say, oh, I want to make a sweater. Well, what kind of pockets do you want? On the front? In the seam? And they're like, I don't know. I've done sweaters with both pockets on the front and pockets in the seams. So now I'm coming up here on my shoulder seam, and I'm trying not to knock my camera all over the place because I've got the phone right over my hands. Let's stay in camera frame here and still be able to look around and see what I'm doing at the same time. And when we get up to the shoulder seam, I put one right in the middle of the seam. So as we come up along, almost to the shoulder seam here, probably about 7 more stitches maybe. Going to check and make sure I'm still staying right off the edge of that knit row there. Bring that down so we get the right size so we don't have to fight with it when we come back through. It's 8 stitches. Alright, here is my center seam here. Let me get this turned around here a little bit so we can see more so the back that we are getting ready to go across. We are at the shoulder seam and the back is getting ready to come right along with it. So what I do, here we are on the last stitch of, actually I think maybe there's one more right here, but we're going to skip that one and go right straight into the center. Oh, we got that one. Right straight in the center between where the front meets the back, right into my seam. I'm going to go right into there and pull up a stitch through. Okay, make that to size. And then going across the back, it's pretty easy because you can see where I cast my stitches off for the bind off on the back piece. And we are just going to pick up each one of those, going through both legs, starting with this one right here in between my fingers, right there. It does look a little, oops, distorted here, but we are going to catch the front and the back legs of that stitch and work our loop right on through there. Of course, we have to hold a little bit of tension there until we come through. That one was a little tight there because we had used that to stitch the front piece of the cardigan to the back. And now I'm just catching all of those bound off stitches from where we finished the back piece across the back of there, which makes it easy. Some people leave these stitches live and put it on waste canvas or barber cord to hold it. Others will just go ahead and bind off like I do and then go ahead and pick them up. I think it looks better if you bind them off and then pick them up because you have a definite finish of the back and then you can actually see a definite start of where you pick up the collar band. To me, I've done it with the live stitches and I don't like the way it just looks like it just continues up. So I do mine this way. Even though some patterns will tell you to leave them live, I bind them off and I just pick them back up. I go right across the back. And then we'll be over onto the other side here in a minute to go down the front. And we'll pick all those stitches up exactly the same way. And then we will work a knit 1 purl 1 row back and forth. I think I might put some larger buttons on here, but I still need to figure out my buttons. So we will definitely, all of these stitches will take a while to work through from one side to the other. So we will definitely come back tomorrow for the buttons. And I think I will be able to find a way to clip the live so that I can use the button tutorial, or maybe I'll just do a whole different one on a little mocked up scrap of fabric here. They're getting a little tighter, which was probably me casting off a little too tight and trying to get back into those stitches. Now I'm not going through the width of my fabric. What I'm actually doing is I'm catching both legs, the front and back of my cast off. You can see those little V shapes that are sitting kind of sideways there. That's what I'm going right back through. And I've been looking around the camera. Hopefully I've been in frame for you to see exactly what I have been doing. It's hard to watch it through the camera. I don't know why, but it is. Doesn't translate over into the brain as well for some reason. I guess I'm just not used to it. Probably. Now here we go here. And there's a little fuzzy from where I clipped an end off. So here we are on the opposite shoulder seam now. We've got that nice little braided seam there, and I'm going to go ahead and put this right smack in the middle, and it's going to cover up over the top of that little fuzzy knot there, and it's going to push it right on off to the back. Now coming down this, it's going to look slightly different because our little vertical rows of knitting are now facing the opposite direction here. So we are going to avoid this second row here and work on just very edge row. Making sure, let's see where we're at here. Here we go. To catch both the front and back legs of those stitches. And if you have a little or anything like this hanging out, pull it to the back and allow your string to go over top before doing your wrap to pull your stitches through. It will actually help hold that in and to the back. And when I turn this over so you can see that, it does actually fold all of that to the back, and it helps hold it onto the back side. So if you come up to any little knots or anything like that, that's the best way to handle those, to get them tucked back into the side. And onward we go down this other side. Now I know I have the same number of rows on the fronts because I worked both of them at the same time. As long as I am very, very careful about how I pick these stitches up and make sure that I hit every row as I'm going down through, everything will be even. If you are one who needs to count your stitches up the one side to your shoulder seam, make a notation on a little piece of paper how many stitches you picked up. Work across the back of the neck as evenly as you can, which should be fairly easy because those should all be cast off stitches or stitches that you left live so that you don't have to pick them back up. Just slide them over onto a needle. And I was going to put 2 stitches in one. And then you can count the number of stitches that you pick up. Did I miss one? That looks like an awful gap. Let me just take those 2 out. Yep, I did. I missed a little one. That made enough of a gap in between my stitches there that I could tell that there was an issue. But yes, once you know the count of how many stitches you picked up one side, you can count. If you're really concerned about being off by just picking up the rows and going on the fly, count your stitches as you go back down the second side and make sure you have an even count. And again, I'm going to check and make sure. Yeah, we're coming right up along the edge of that knit row. And we'll just keep right on going. One stitch at a time till we come to the end. And then, of course, we pick up our needles, get everything all in order, and we start working back. And I've went off track right here. See, I've got the edge here, and I came in a little too far right here on that stitch. So we're going to back that up. Alright. We didn't have it unrolled far enough to see that we were catching a hold of part of that second vertical row there. So that's what happens with stockinette stitch when you don't have a border edge on it. It rolls underneath. As you can see with this here, this is rolled to the wrong side, but this will get seamed up, so we're okay. If you're working something knit that is flat, that is not going to have sides seams sewed up, you want to make sure to put some type of different stitch edging on it, garter stitch, moss stitch, some type of different stitches on the edges for at least 4 stitches or more, so that your edges don't roll up on you. And that only does it in the stockinette stitch or the reverse stockinette stitch, which is just purl on the right side, knit on the wrong side. It's just the opposite. So, and on down and through here we go. My music got real quiet. I see somebody. Hey, Witchy. You could double layered beanie. Basically what you're going to do is knit one beanie, and then on the right side row you can do a purl row, and then go back to doing your stockinette stitch and work the length of another beanie, and then turn them inside each other and sew the tops together. I have done this with the knitting machine, but you can hand knit it like that. Yes, if you did want to knit another beanie inside of one you already have, this was how you would do it. You would pick up the stitches and, yeah, knit. This is also the way to put a border edge onto a raw stockinette edge so that it will stay unrolled. But yeah, there's many different things you can use this for. Picking up stitches like this, you can pick up stitches and you can knit a panel across a hole that you have in a sweater, and then, you know, sew over around the edges just like I did my pocket, same type of technique. I could pick up stitches and make a little patch of only 1 inch wide to cover up a hole. There's also knitting techniques that you can repair a hole and it looks like it was never a hole. You have to be able to decipher what row the knit stitches are in and reconnect those rows, doing almost like a duplicate stitch type method. All things you can do with picking up stitches like this. When I make sweaters, I start with the back and then I work the fronts right straight off the back. I don't even cast the back off. I figure out my stitch count in on my sides. I don't think I picked that one up at all, or did I? I figure out how many stitches I need to come in from the outside of the shoulders in onto the neckline, my stitch count. And then I just work those in short rows with separate skeins of yarn. I can keep them on the same needles, just work them with separate skeins of yarn to the bottom. And then I pick up stitches just like this, knowing the stitch count at the top of my sleeves, and I work the sleeves straight off the side of the sweater. I don't like to do a whole lot of sewing, so as much sewing as I can minimize, I will. I'll find a way around it for sure. For sure, for sure. If I could find a way to get out of weaving in ends, I think I'll share it with every crafter, because I don't know but too many who like to weave in ends. I know it's the end of the project, but I don't like weaving in ends if I don't have to. So I think that's the same with a lot of people. Hey Aunt Mary, how are you? Hey Cindy. No, this isn't the poncho. Would you let me show you the poncho really quickly? I was working on it earlier. I had to take 2 rows out of this design. I started a triangle poncho with 2 stitches down here with just 2 stitches. And then on the second row, because I was on the wrong side, I purled through the front and back loop of each stitch to give me 4 stitches. And then every row after that, right side and wrong side, I increased at the beginning of the row with a knit or a purl in the front and back loop and an increase at the end of the row, depending on what side I was on, what stitch I used. And yeah, we've got a lot of color work here. A lot of color work. This is what they call Fair Isle knitting. You have 4 or 5 rows with different color changes, little designs in them, and you use a bunch of different colors. You repeat the designs over and over again. I've repeated them to the point where I've actually changed the colors. These 2 are the same. This one and this one's the same. Just changed the colors that I used for the background and the design. And yeah, and it's coming along. It's coming along. Thank you, Cindy and Linda Love. Yeah, I've done a lot of different color work. I've done strand knitting, but I've never done Fair Isle, which is, it's easy. You only ever have 2 colors in a row at a time, which works well for me because I only have 2 hands. When I do color work, I have 1 color in each hand. I have not figured out how to trap the floats on the back side of the floating yarn and hold both yarns in the same hand. I've seen other people do it. I've watched videos. I can't wrap my head around it, so I do it the way I know how to do. I will knit continental and English at the same time. 1 color in one hand, 1 color in the other. Do the required number of stitches with each, making sure to trap the floating yarn on the back side of the work. And I've started trapping my floats. If I have 2 of the same color, I trap it every other stitch. And it's coming out pretty good. Makes the front design look a lot crisper compared to what I used to do was trapping every 3 to 4 stitches. And yeah, lots of fun. But I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to get back to working on it, but I have to stop at a certain point on that because I want to show everyone how I'm going to do the next shaping. How I did a little bit of math, actually measured a t-shirt of the size that I'm actually making it for to measure the opening, subtracting inches for, if I want to do a collar band or a rolled edging. I think I'm going to do an I-cord edging over the whole thing when I'm finished. And I'm hoping to have it done by at least the poncho portion and to be working on the edging by Friday next week. That's a generous amount of time there, considering that I think it's only been 4 or 5 days that it took me to work the front piece. But again, I've been working on other things as well, not just solely on that. So, yeah, I set goals to get things finished. Do I always get them finished on time? No, specifically if they're for me. If it's a commission like this is. Yeah, I stay on task and I get it done because I have somebody waiting for a custom handmade item. And I don't like to make them wait too long. So I don't open for custom orders too much. I got buried under like 11 of them all at one time last year. But I got through it. So now I do open my commissions every so often, but not as often And I only take one or two at a time. That way I don't have too many people just thoroughly just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. I don't think that's good. Plus, I'm also trying to work on getting into an annual local event, which should be fun. Got to check into that. I used to do that a long time ago. Hey, Candid, how are you? Yeah, using both sides of my brain at the same time. So not only are my hands ambidextrous, but my brain sometimes functions both sides at the same time. Sometimes it's like, no, we're not doing this today. And that's okay. I can have days like that where I can work on other things, smaller things, or actually there were some days where I couldn't do a whole lot of this because my mind and my hands just weren't comprehending each other. Thank you, Fibro. But yeah, I do other things. I design patterns on the computer, design stuff that I want to make. And we're almost back down here to the other end. And yeah, I just keep going. Even though, you know, sometimes my mind and my health and things try to impede me, I work around it. I work around it. The only limitations that I allow for myself is ones that I say are okay. And there's not very many of them. Now we're lagging. You're going to make a new bobbin lace pillow. Yeah, my stuff was lagging. Michael, I'm actually working on a knit-along that we started a couple of months ago. Knitting Mama, thank you for the follow. Michael, thank you for the follow as well. Hey, Becky. Yeah, I do a knit-along. Basically, we were working on practicing knit and purl stitches and helping some knitters break out of that hats, blankets, scarves phase because they were a little intimidated by a hand knit sweater. I'm going to be doing more knit-alongs. We did finish up a crochet along as well. I wouldn't mind doing another one of those. We would have to take it a lot slower than the knitting one because crochet really just tears my hands up bad, but I still love to do it. I do have some crochet projects that I am working on and finishing up, but it's a slow go. So we need to start talking about what our next knit-along will be. I'd like to teach you guys what you would like to learn, help you step out of your comfort zone. Did we go over too far? I don't know, for some reason that looks like... No, we're good, I think. I'll look at it here. It just looked a little bulky, but it's not. No, we're good. But yeah, I want to teach you what you want to learn and help you step outside your comfort zone and see that, you know, it's still just knit and purl stitches. That's all it's ever going to be, with some different style increases and decreases. And I want to work on projects that kind of emphasize those type of stitches so that you're more confident in knowing, hey, I can do this now, you know? So that you can go on to make whatever you want. You won't be limited. That's one of the reasons why I started making my own things. I would go look for patterns, and I would have to settle for less than what I was looking for because I could not particularly find exactly what I wanted. And I don't like to settle. So, you know, I started, oh, sorry about that. We had sent you on a ride again. I'll be able to raise this up a little bit higher now since we've got all of this really close detail done. And you can see there we ended right up on that edge there. And that does look ever so nice when you can get that edge all nice and crisp and sharp right along your pickup edge. So, no, this is, actually I'm picking up stitches to do a collar band on a knitted sweater. Kind of move these and relax these a little bit. They're all kind of bound up there. So now all I'm going to do is turn this around and I'm going to knit and purl back across. Amigurumi, yes. Not quite sure. It probably could be called a null binding, depending on individual definition for sure. I know a lot of people call things a lot of different things. Yes, I'll definitely do some amigurumi. I know that was a big request. But as far as the knit along, I didn't know if everybody wanted to try and do color work. As far as amigurumi, it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Basically, it's increases and decreases within crochet. I have done one knitted teddy bear. I really don't like the way knitted shaping comes out. But, hey, Bat Legs. How are you? Yeah, amigurumi's fun. You can do a lot with amigurumi. There are the little, what I call loveys, and I know a lot of people probably call them like little security blankets. They're basically a 12-inch by 12-inch square that you put a stuffed animal head and arms on, which makes it really simple, you know. I was like, okay, did we pull this to the wrong end? Because I saw that string over there, and then I saw that it was cut off, and I was like, oh no. But no, that's the end over there. Now I've got my work turned around, and I'm just going to do a knit one, purl one rib on here. And because we're on the back side, I like to start with a purl because I like my knit rib to be on the bottom. I get a little particular. All right, honey, very good. Well, this one's working. Is that what you needed? A check? Don't have any audio, but I see lots of text. All right, you're all good. So yeah, I'm going to start out with the purl stitch and then go to a knit because I like to have that knit rib on the front at the bottom. And I'm going to try to accommodate that on the other side as well. If I have to do an extra stitch in there, I will put an extra stitch, or I'll work two together, depending on how full it looks. This is the same band that we did here on the bottom, just a different stitch count. This band is a little, you know, it draws it up a little. You can see the puffiness that it's causing at the bottom. I don't want that same effect up around the neckband. We don't want to bunch that up. We want it to lay nice and flat. So a knit one, purl one rib gives you the same ribbing effect for your border, which will carry throughout your sweater, from your sleeves, your sleeve cuffs, the tops of your pockets, the bottom border on the bottom edge. It just makes it all uniform, so it looks like it's meant to go together. And I'm just knitting and purling over these stitches that I just picked up. I think I'm going to do an 1.5 inch button band. So for an inch, I think I had like 5.5 stitches, or 5.5 rows, I mean. So at about 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to do my buttonholes. Make sure that I had a purl there and not another knit. Okay. So at 3/4 of an inch, I'll be doing my buttonholes, and I do my buttonholes vertically. They'll look horizontal here, but they are up and down as this way as the sweater sits. Trying to remember if I had a knit or a purl there. when I stopped knitting to show you which way those buttons would go. And we probably won't get to the buttons today. I can come back tomorrow and do the buttons, or same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or I can make y'all wait till next Thursday, which is the next scheduled Knit-A-Long date. Which one would you like? Twisted, I'm seeing a lot of lag over here too. I think it is just Chronic Wool, welcome in. I think it's just the internet itself, honey, today. Changed your wave. Yeah, I like to knit a lot more. Jay, thank you for the heart, me. Yeah, you were coming along on that diamond art there, Twisted. I think it looked really, really neat. Does it have any glow-in-the-dark diamonds in it? Oh, it changed your wave to buy. Got a little tight here as we pulled those stitches through, so I'm going to have to shuffle this a little bit more until I get this first row done. Once I get this first row done, let's see if we can't get through the whole of the stitch there. The heck. And of course my eyes want to be a real pain today. Okay, we're going along here. Knit 1, purl 1. And we are working on a 60-inch circular. I like having the 60-inch circular because it doesn't matter what I'm working on, socks, hats, whatever. I can do the magic loop. I have the ability to work a blanket on the same size needles, so I don't need multiple fixed circulars of different lengths. Sometimes the length of the cable does get to be a little irritating, but I work with it because it allows me to have, you know, a minimal amount of tools that can do multiple things, and that's what I like, multi-purpose. You think it is? I think some of those are glow in the dark because of the shade of that green that's in there. Everything's glow in the dark. There you go. Jay just told you how to make it glow in the dark, Twisted. Oh. I have worked with some UV reactive yarn that glows in black light, and that was really fun to work with. I want to do another project with that and do it here live with the black light, but I need to get my desk finished up. So I've got the shelf up top to actually hang the black light on so that I have the ability to do it and not worry about the light falling while I'm trying to do it. Have my studio falling apart over here. But yeah, I think Jay's got the best studio. I like his studio. It looks like a room with the chair in the middle. Oh, I like that shawl that you're working on. What is that? The I don't know why I want to call it the flamingo, but I don't think that's what it's called. Okay, there you go. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love all of those bright colors. I'm thinking about, because I've been doing this Fair Isle over here, I want to do a sweater for myself in Fair Isle, but I want to use like the bright stripes colors, but I want to put some UV reactive yarn in there along with, you know, and I don't know quite how to set it up yet, but I will figure it out. I absolutely do. I think it will be just phenomenal. Yes, I noticed that you had a knit and a crochet pattern for that one. That's really, really neat. So that you have it available whether someone likes to crochet, whether they prefer crochet or knit. You have it available in both. That's absolutely awesome. I did a kit once for a giveaway. I think once I reached 5,000 followers, I did a little thank you. And I put together a kit of my own making, very rudimentary kit, no professional anything. I did everything right here in this room, from printing out the page that went into the front that showed you the picture. The pattern I designed myself. I weighed out all the yarn that was necessary, and all of that yarn, scissors, a little plastic sewing needle to sew it up, and whatever else needed to be done for a knitted and a crocheted little drawstring purse, so that they could choose whether they wanted the knitted or the crocheted. But yeah, I want to do some more stuff like that. But I think I want to gear it more towards just the, catching some of the next stitch, just the pattern and everything that you need minus the yarn. Because sometimes the yarn choices you put in there, people really don't like. And, you know, especially for like a market event, you could have a basket of yarn and they could pick, you know how much of each one they need. They could pick the colors out that they wanted to make their own. But as far as for like, you know, online purchases and things like that, they could go out and pick out their own yarn, you know, their own colors, their own, you know, whatever they wanted to use. Or they might have had some at home that they wanted to use. But I think it's up, and here we are coming up to that tight little stitch there that we put in the seam. And we are going to work across the back of the neck here, and then we will be on down to the other side front, and we are going on almost 1 o'clock. So I think it's just going to be this one row we get done. I will continue working on these rows until I get to the row where I do my button band, or the buttonholes. I am working on the button band for when I do the buttonholes. I'm going to do about 1.5 inches total width on this collar band. So at 3/4 of an inch halfway through, I will stop there. And I'm sure I won't get this done before tomorrow. So we're going to have to do another session next Thursday. I will show you how to do the button holes all in one row, so that, you know, there's no, once you get the buttonhole done and you work back over the row, there's no other issue. There's no other things to do. You just keep going. So I will show you how to do that. And it's really very easy. It's almost like doing short rows. And yeah, it's really convenient too. Nice finished buttonholes. I used to do my buttonholes where you knit 2 together and yarn over. That always left a piece of yarn that got in the way, or you could see it there in the buttonhole. the way I do my buttonholes now, it's nice and it looks finished, more polished, more professional, I would say. So I just want to try to get to the end of the row before we end at 1 o'clock, so I can turn this over and lay it flat a little bit so that you can see how this is going to come up off of that edge and have it look really, really nice. Yeah. Oh, it's okay, Michael. I'm having some lagging over here too. I've noticed my camera has frozen while I'm moving and talking, so I kind of back up a little bit. Yeah, they can choose their own yarn, which is pretty cool. Yeah. I would just have to have, you know, so many ounces wound up and ready to go of whatever I'd had for, you know, there to offer for that project. Have to be the right yarn weight to match with the pattern and all, so yeah. I think it would be a neat idea. And I have some other things coming too. A lot of other things. I just got to get everything all together and get the ball rolling, and then I'll be able to roll out the red carpet and show you what all I've had going on over here in the background, backstage. Well, we had a good bit more than what I thought, but we should be able to finish this row out before we head off for the day. I won't leave you hanging mid-row because I'll have to finish the row anyway. I don't like leaving anything sitting in the middle of the row. Too much opportunity to come back later, pick it up and start knitting the wrong way, or get off with your stitch count and everything be all wonky. Every yarn crafter understands. Let me finish the row first. It's kind of a unspoken rule. Welcome in, Brenda. How are you today? Cindy, I'm glad to see you back with me. Cindy's one I think she catches darn near every live I have. Her and Arlene. I got a couple good regulars that come and sit with me all the time. You try. I'm on here so sporadically, but now I'm starting to come back on the way I used to. Kind of got everything ironed out now, and I'm a little more secure. And got a little bit more support, so yeah, I can be a little more relaxed and not so uptight and on edge now, which makes it a lot easier to enjoy crafting. I can't do this when I don't really feel really well, or if I'm not in the greatest of moods. I make such mistakes. You're like, how in the world did I do that type of mistakes? You know, it's like I'm knitting and I'm not watching, but I'm actually watching, but I could not replicate that if my life depended on it. Type, ooh, what did you do? Yeah, I do some doozies sometimes. So when I get to feeling a little tired or, you know, not so great, I will set it to the side because I would rather not make mistakes. But I always try to get to the end of the row before I set it down. Too many times I picked it up and started knitting the wrong way. I did do a video on here where I had to literally take a sweater all the way apart back to the back because and knit every piece over again because I knitted the fronts right off the back, and then I picked up the stitches for the sleeves right off the sides of the sweater, And the issue was the front pieces were for a medium, the back was for an extra large, and it would not close up for anyone of any size properly. So I had to take 2/3 of a sweater out. Not just unsew it, it had to be taken all the way out, which was a lot of fun. But I redid it, I finished it. So yeah, that was the striped one, the long striped one that I did with the red heart white, the either coffee or Java, which was like a dark brown, and the reef. I love that sweater. I wear it a good bit in the wintertime because it's nice. But yeah, I do some simple stuff just like this knit-along sweater that we worked on and we're going to complete next week. And I also do some intricate stuff like what we've got laying back here with all of this color work going on. I used to do a whole lot of sewing with the sewing machine too. I want to kind of get back into that a little bit. Not as much as I used to. I used to make Easter dresses for my daughters, real frilly dresses. Little puffy princess sleeves, and my daughters had ones that had the 3-tiered ruffles down the back and all of that. Yeah, that one I actually did the whole video and showed you where I had 12 rows on one side of the sleeve and 11 rows on the other because I turned the piece in the middle of the work, didn't finish out the row, and just started knitting the other way. Yeah. Literally had to take it all back out. Has photos of all the yarn all wound back up and just the back on needles a second time and redo everything. But yeah, that was, and it was so crazy with that sweater. I had made one prior to that for my sister, and I used a white, I used I think it was tea leaf, and which is like a muted spring green. And then I used the Caron Simply Soft Rose Garden. And I liked it so much I wanted to make one for myself. Well, the first one went through without a hitch. And it was the first time that I had followed that pattern. And it wasn't one of my own. It was just a pattern that I was following. Just mindless knit. And when I was like, okay, I can make one of these for myself. Oh my goodness, the mistakes that were in there. I can't claim a project for myself at the beginning. I have to act like I'm making it for somebody else, because if I don't, I make so many mistakes. And Witchy can tell you about that if she's still in there. Hey, Sondora, how are you? She was with me through the whole make of that one. Made one for my sister, and then turned right around immediately, made one for myself. And was like, yeah. Witchy and them were like, well, just, you're making that sweater for me. You remember that, Witchy? Yeah. They were trying to convince me that it was no longer my sweater, so I would quit making mistakes. So I'm going to pull this around here on these needles a little bit so I can show you this one side here. How when you pick it up really, really well, it will give you this nice straight edge. And we're going to bring this right on down here. And we'll pull this over so you can see how we have that very nice straight edge here. And everything is coming off from that. It looks, you know, very, very meticulously picked up. Makes it look like you took extra time making sure that you've got that one straight line all the way down through. And it makes a huge difference when you take the extra time to make sure you only pick up the 2 legs of that outside vertical row. Thank you, Witchy. Started a bucket hat. There's a lot of bucket hats going on now. A lot of people are making bucket hats. And Witchy, I don't know if I remember this right, but you can probably remember this well. And hopefully I'm remembering a memory and not, something made up. Do you remember when they used to take the aluminum cans with the logo from whatever was in them, hit them with a hole punch, and crocheted around that and made those into bucket hats? Do you remember that? Sandora remembers that. Michael, I am using Red Heart. It's called Roll With It. I think it's the Melange series. It looks just like this. It comes in a cake. There's actually a pretty good bit of yardage on here. 150 grams in the cake. The only thing I don't recommend you do with this is sew pieces together. I was having issues sewing this sweater together, and I will show you the issues that I was having. This is absolutely soft. It feels post-wash soft, straight off the skein. So I'm thinking that it's going to be just absolutely decadent once it's really, really washed. The issue I was having, and I'll have to show you with this piece, they're not, as you sew, your yarn gets untwisted, and this really is not but one single ply. You can see that there are not multiple plies like you would have in your worsted weight yarn, which I have a little bit of worsted weight here. Let me pull this over for comparison, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you unravel worsted weight yarn, you can actually see 4 different plied strands. Let me get it to unravel a little bit more, get it to come apart. You can see 4 distinct different strands that are plied and then plied together. The thing about this is more like Red Heart Unforgettable, where they just did a single ply on roving. It is not really, plied and then plied upon itself again. So as I was sewing my seams up, this gets twisted around and it was starting to come apart. And this is what it was actually doing as I was sewing it together. I would not recommend using this yarn to sew anything together with, because it does unravel and come apart very, very easily. For anything that doesn't need to be seamed together, I think it would be absolutely wonderful, because you are not going to untwist this ply as much as when you are using it to sew around, whip stitches back and forth. It does unravel your yarn, and it just absolutely started just like pulling apart. As you saw, it was pulling apart. This would be, I think, wonderful for blankets, anything that you don't have to seam together. If you do have to seam this together, you might want to think about sewing it together with a different type of yarn. Yeah, you can really see it now. The difference between the fact that, yeah, this does look like it's plied when you look at it, but when you actually unroll it, it is just fluff. Just fluff. It's not individually plied and then 4-plied like your worsted weight yarn. It does knit up the same. I haven't crocheted with it, so I don't know if it would crochet the same. I'm assuming that it would, but don't sew things together with it. That's just my recommendation. Still use it. It's absolutely wonderful. I bought it because when I picked it up, it felt soft, and I didn't care if I didn't like the color or not, but I did like the color because that's what caught my eye. And when I picked it up, it was just so soft. And for it to be 100% acrylic, this is like post-wash extra soft. So just be careful if you decide to use it for something like a sweater where you're going to need seams. Make sure that you use a different yarn, a worsted weight, regular acrylic 4-ply. I don't even think that this says 4-ply on it. It does say medium weight. You still have to wash this on a gentle cycle, which is different than a regular acrylic yarn care directions. So yes, I will have to make sure to let my sister know about that. And yeah, no, it doesn't say anything on here about how many plies it is, so maybe you have to watch the label for that. Was made in India. I don't think that has anything to do with it. But yes, this type of yarn is only a single ply. So that's probably the issue, the fact that it's a single ply, and you really have to handle it gently to wash it. So I would recommend my sister to hand wash this, even though I hate to give her something that hard to have to deal with. But yeah. And here's the pocket that we sewed on directly from last week. But I will continue on with this for about 3/4 of an inch, which is probably about 3 or 4 rows in total. And then, yeah, we'll come back on next Thursday with the buttonholes and finish off the button band. Yeah, Cindy, I will share anything with you. I did enjoy very much so knitting with this yarn. The whole time I was knitting, I was rubbing on the back side as I'm knitting. My other fingers were just, back here on the back doing all of this in heaven as I'm knitting. So it is heavenly yarn to work with, but, sometimes, even though it's the best yarn, or it feels the best in your hands to work with, it does have its little flaws and things that you might not like about it. So I did discover that only as I was sewing it together, and now I'm really concerned that it's going to fall apart in the wash. I do wash all of my finished items before they go anywhere, and this one will get gently washed, and we'll see what happens. So join me next Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will finish this up, do some buttonholes. In the meantime, I will get last week's Knit+A+Long uploaded to YT for anyone who might need it to continue on. The whole thing will be there for future viewing. And we'll be back next week. If anyone has any questions about this Knit+A+Long, suggestions for the next Knit+A+Long, things that they would like to learn or they're having problems with, just hit me up with a message, catch me on live. I'm more than happy to stop exactly what I'm doing, even during the Knit+A+Long, to show you different things. Cindy, you have a great weekend too. And everyone else that's here, have an amazing, amazing weekend. And we will see you next time. And as usual, may all your stitch counts match. And happy crafting. You too, Witchy.